Hey everybody, and welcome back. Alright, well this may be a new video, but it's still the same week because, as I said at the end of the last one, there was a lot of videoable stuff. So I just managed to slip out today, probably only for an hour or so, yeah, not much more, before we go into Ithaca, our local, well, they say city of Ithaca. Actually they use the word city here a lot, and it's, at the most you might call it a market town. It's not even as big, it's maybe as big as, I don't know, Thirsk, which is up in North Yorkshire. Heriot country, that's where James Heriot, I can't remember his real name, that's where he actually had his surgery. He was a vet to some of my relatives up there, actually, my dad's side, who had farms. Anyway, I'm waffling again. Alright, so the nut came, it was 5/8 20 for the front wheel, so I think what I'll just sneak in this morning, rather than getting started on something bigger like changing all the bearings or building the crank, is we'll do the front wheel and make the spacing piece. Alright, and then I can dismantle the wheel and I can actually do the hubs. So yeah, that's it. Let's just do that, and then we'll get into the engine stuff starting probably tomorrow. So I'll put the nut on, as you can see, up tight. Of course I had to fiddle around with threads for a while. So this is in, that's why I did the other side first. This is in all tight up against the other spacer, so now I know this is exactly right. So I am going to make 3 measurements. I need to know from there to there, which is going to be for our wider 1-inch bit. Then I need to know from, they're all going to be from this sort of datum, from there to where the studs are to make our little reliefs, and from there to the outside of here, so I know how long it's going to be. Actually, I'm going to make 4 measurements because I'm going to measure how far it is from here to the end of the spindle. Alright, so let me make those measurements, and then we'll get a piece of 1-inch round and start doing our drillings and turnings. Right, so I made that one and I put the slit in both of them. So now that one goes on there, and that one goes on there like that. So let me put them in the forks. Alright, so there it is in our 2 spacing pieces, the brake arm on, and can you see there? Yeah, see, there's the split. So when I clamp these up, these are not only sort of spacing and sleeving, but they're going to clamp up onto the wheel spindle. So as I say, I've just bead blasted this and it's got the old bearings in, so, but that's all right. So I'll take that apart, take the bearings out, put the new bearings in, we'll paint it all, and I got a thing from UPS this morning to say my rims are actually on the way. Okay, so let's get on with the crank again. Alright, well, it's easier to manhandle. Let's see what's in here. Unlike the twins and the Triumph twins, these don't have a tube in them. Oh, my stomach's rumbling. So what I'm going to do is dig all this out, and when I'm sure I've got it all out, God, oh, there's a lot in there. Anyway, I'll clean all this out, and then we'll start and wash it out from the inside. Where are we? From the inside, we'll start to flush it through. There's the hole there. Yeah, you can just about see it. There's a couple of holes. There's 1, 2. There's 2 holes. One there, one there. So we'll flush it that way because obviously it's a much bigger hole inside going, so if there's any dirt left in when you start using some solvent to get it out, you don't want to push it into these little holes, you want to be blowing that way. So anyway, let me continue. So there's what came out, and just to give you some idea, look, there's my index finger, there's a lot of it. Alright, let's start flushing it out. Now I've moved you back a bit so you don't get spattered. So we're going to blow from this side, so I'll put that to there. Can. Where's the other one? Put my finger over it. Oh, there's the other one. I've got my safety glasses on as well because I always used to get an eye full of this stuff whenever I tried to do anything with a squirty can. Yeah. Yeah, look at that. Anyway, let me carry on cleaning this out and then we'll start to put the crank together. Alright, I've got this completely cleaned out. I've been looking down it with a torch, I've seen it, washed everything out. I've cleaned off all the rollers and the roller cage, so I'm going to put that together and put this on, and then we'll go to the press and press these two halves together. Alright, put all the rollers in, put that together, put the con rod on. So now I'm going to put that on there. Don't forget this is on a taper. What we're going to do is we're going to get these right, we'll start going, oh, just nice. I'll start to put a little bit of pressure on and then I'll check it again. Now I haven't found the torque setting for this nut yet, so I'll have to sort that out, but I've been doing other things today that you didn't see, so it's actually near the end of the day. So if I can get this right, see, I just put a little bit of, just want that to even it up. Hang on. Right, I got my little lead hammer. this is a sort of backwards and forwards thing till you feel you're right, and then of course we do the final truing in between the centres. So let me just press on till I'm happy and then I'll bring you back. Right, I went to using the brass hammer because the lead one was sort of losing too much of its bump with the softness of the lead. So let's see about I think that is on. About as far as it'll go. Okay, that's nice. Right, so the next thing to do is to put it in the fixture and tighten this down to the appropriate torque, which, as I say, I'm going to do. The unfortunate thing with some of the older bikes is the handbooks. Well, sometimes you've got a handbook rather than the manual, but the manuals are not as exact or don't have as much of the sort of rebuilding specifications as a more modern handbook would. You know, I mean, some of them don't have any torque ones. But I want to find out roughly what this is, so let's see if we can do that. Alright, so we're in the stand here. Let's say this comes around, touches on there, so I can tighten this up. The other thing I didn't mention, when I made this, I made sure everything was this pin and that was square. So it actually also helps to keep the flywheels in line. So that if when you tighten, because I'm going to tighten this down to 200 foot-pounds. There was a torque settings in the back of the B44 manual. You know, it's a big flat nut, quite a large surface area for the nut, 200 pounds. There's a chance it's going to move this flywheel. Well, with these, of course, it holds the two of them exactly right. So anyway, of course, I didn't have a 200 pound torque wrench, and neither did Steam Shop or a couple of my other friends. But luckily, at the bottom of the hill, there's a car repair place, local chap by the name of Newt, and I phoned him, and yeah, he had one that goes up to 250 pounds, so I borrowed it. So let's get this up to 200 pound. There's a lot of pull. Oh. Man, I guess when I was taking it off, the power torque wrench must have loosened it, because it did. There we go. Didn't take that much to get it off. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is set this up in the lathe between centres to true up the flywheels. Now I've set it up in the lathe to true it between centres, and before I did this I checked my centres were right. Although this is 3-jaw chuck, it's actually a set right type chuck, so chuck will move on the face plate. So I checked that this was exactly right and everything was good. And partly, I believe anyway, this is the beauty of being on tapers and not being straight crank pin. The taper tends to pull everything to be exactly right. So, according to the manual, the drive side should be 2 thou, this side should be 1/2 thou. And honest to God, I haven't touched these, so let me see if I can do this and you can see. That is, funnily enough, half a thou. Now, let me see if I can move you around. You're not going to be able to see this that well, but that is in half thou increments. Right, so that's going from 3.5 thou that side to 1.5 thou that side, or 1 thou. So that's 4.5. That's, yeah. So that's just over 2 thou, and 2 thou is the spec for the drive side. This is a, what, 60-year-old crank. It's done a lot. I'm happy with that. 2 and a bit thou on this side, 0.5 thou on the other side. Excuse me. You're out of focus again, I know. There you go. I'm not going to mess with that. So, as I say, 2.5 thou this side and it should be 2. Half a thou this side and it should be a half. Can you see me finger pointing everywhere? Half here where it should be, 2.5 where it should be 2. I'm not worried about a half a thou in this, particularly on a trials bike. This isn't going to be stressed, etc, etc. So we're fine with that. So there are 2 of these little Torrington needle bearings. They're for putting, well, in both the instances here, they're in blind holes. One of them, for one end of the lay shaft, actually goes into the kickstart. Right, I've already changed that one. And the other one, as you've seen, goes into the back of there. Okay, can you see? It's there. All right, now then, those of you who've been watching a while may remember that I actually made a tool out of one of those concrete anchor bolts. See, that goes into there, and then when you tighten it up, I don't know, you can see there's a thing in there, and as I tighten this up, it expands that and grips it, and then I use a slide hammer to bang it off. Well, last Christmas, my friend Mike and his charming partner Laurel bought me a proper set of these. So all different sizes. You can see this one's a 15mm. It's exactly the same principle, but of course made out of much better steel and everything, with a much bigger, nicer slide hammer. So we're going to use that to see if we can get this one out. In fact, tell you what, we'll try it while it's cold. Of course, it's in an awkward place, so I don't know if you'll be able to see much of this. We're going to grip that part with that. There we go. And we're going to tighten up this. Seems to be that. I have to move this round or I'm going to smack the camera. Yeah, let me move that I was using. No, we're going to have to wait until that's hot, I think. Okay, let me put it in the oven. I'm going to play around with it. As I say, I'm not going to show you this because it's going to be hands everywhere. Alright, we'll try again. God, that isn't moving at all. Oh, there it is. There you go. Alright, clean that hole out, put it back in, heat it up some more and see about putting some bearings in. Right, well, while we're waiting for that plug to arrive to finish off the crank, let's change the bearings. So I've got the drive side already in the oven, and that is the bearing that goes on the drive side. It's a roller bearing. Yes, it's a roller bearing. So let's see if I can get this thing out of the oven without burning myself. This is good and hot, so this should just drop into there, like thus. There you go. Right, now then I'm going to do the other side, but I'm not going to film that because there's the main bearing, there's the bearing in the gearbox, and they're on opposite sides, so I'm worried that, you know, when they're as loose as that, I put one in, turn it over to put the other one in, and that one's going to drop out. So I will do those off camera. Right, so there's the bearings in the other side, the main bearing. We've got a ball bearing on this side, and here's what I was saying, you see, that one has to drop in that way, but this one had to drop in that way, as did the little needle roller bearing. Plus here, I had to keep an eye on this bronze bush to see that that didn't come loose and slip out. So anyway, there's all those bearings in. So now we've got to wait, as I say, for that plug to arrive, and then we can put the crankcase halves together. Going to put the barrel on, we'll put the piston on, put the barrel on, we'll put the head on. Actually, I'm waiting for valve springs and valves for that, which should be in the same order as the crankshaft drain plug, not drain plug, you know what I'm talking about. And I want to put the barrel and the head on, then we'll put it back in the frame, put the exhaust on, tighten it all up, and we'll make the silencer. So next thing for me to do, I think I'll go and cross this off my list, is to put the rocker box back together. Right, I thought while I was waiting for things, also I'd bead blast and polish up the cases, and I realised I've forgotten a bearing. See, you put something to one side and then you forget about it. So I've got to get, see, that one's absolutely stuck. I've got to get a new bearing for there. So luckily there's no great hurry for that. So let me get this one out. This one is held in yet by a circlip, so I'll get that one out and bead blast this. As you can see, it really needs it. And then just carry on carrying on. Alright, so got that bearing out and everything done there, so I'll have to order that. I was hoping to order it with some alloy mudguards, but nobody seems to have any at the moment. They're everywhere, out of stock that I've tried. Alright, so we're going to put the rocker box together, just to get it done. So, let's see. We've got these little washers. There's a factory washer, and you'll notice the two washers are different IDs, because one just goes on that bit and the other one has to go all the way up like that. Alright, so make sure everything is the right way around. Don't worry about oil, I'll be pumping some oil through. So first of all, we have the big washer goes on. I don't know whether you're going to be able to see any of this. Big washer goes on. Then get the right way round. There we go. That end goes on the valve. This end goes on the push rod. Goes in there like thus. I'm only going to do one side of these to show you. Right, so that's the big one gone on that side, because up the spindle has got to go all the way through that. Then when it appears at the other end, we put, I can never remember whether it's the washer and then the Thackeray washer, or the Thackeray washer and then the washer. Let me have a little look here. It's the Thackeray washer and then the plain washer. So we've got to squish that up, push it in there. So, and then, as I say, this is difficult to do and have you actually see what I'm doing. I know you can't because my hand is going to be in the way. Hang on, I forgot to get my little pointy thing. I had a comment that the contrast seemed to be higher in the videos. As you know, or well, as some of you know, I use a Nikon D800, which I bought as my stills camera. So sometimes when I've been out taking photographs, although I know the stills part inside out, the video part I don't really know a lot about. So I think I might have just changed the f-stop so that the aperture was poor. I was trying to get a bit more depth of field. Anyway, what I've got to do, see, as soon as you put that in, of course the spring spreads out and takes up the whole thing. So you've got to be able to get the washer underneath it. To do which, you need to lift it up a little bit. And then there it goes, and then you can push that through, and then you've got to you're listening, Dean, you've got to finagle it so that it goes through. And then actually I forgot to get a little make sure it goes through all the holes. Push that through a little bit. The Thackeray washer is a bit awkward to get the thing to go through when it gets to the larger diameter. The tweezers help. You can sort of reach in and get hold of the middle coil of the washer. Oh. Hang on, let me get my little rubber mallet. Well, actually I had to warm it up a little bit. That's all it was tight fit. I normally warm them up to knock them out, but it just felt as if it was going to go in alright with a little tap. So that's in all the way, the O-ring's in, and there's a, of course the banjo goes on here. There's a nut there. So what we're going to do when I've got them both in is pump some oil through. So let me put the other one in. Right, let's see if I can keep you in view all the time. This is a little bit awkward because you see there's one hole there, but there's also another hole there which is much closer to the actual rocker box. It's difficult to get your fingers over them, but hopefully I can. Now of course it goes in there, it goes into here, actually comes out of there. So let me see if I can get this all blocked up. And like I say, there's oil coming out of there. Alright, very good. I'll do the other one and then I will knock off for the day. So actually UPS man's just been and my rims and spokes have arrived, so we'll have a look at them tomorrow as well. So until then, au revoir. Alright, it's the next day, but it's the afternoon because I had stuff to do this morning. Here's my rims, and the invoice says on it Triumph Cub front hub to 21-inch rim, which is right. Triumph Cub rear hub to 18-inch rim, spoke length reflects wider hub, and it mentions it's a 1 inch wider. So they did a really good job, really quickly. The only thing I'm not completely sold on is this silver finish. I must admit I like them polished, although it does make them a lot easier to keep clean. But this is the standard finish. So if you want to get them polished or to receive them polished, it's another $90. And I did have a pair of these which I definitely wanted polished, so I took the time to get the coating off, and it took forever. I don't know if it's anodizing or what, but I sort of had to use, you know, like the little 3-inch sanding discs on the egg thing. I had to use a rough one to get this coating off, and then a couple of different ones, and then polished. I wish I'd never started. So anyway, there it is with all my spokes. And as I say, I like Buchanan's, even nice touches. The stainless steel spokes, stainless steel nipples, so you get a bottle of lubricant, so they don't go. Alright, that's that. Nothing else has arrived, so what else can we look at? I also painted the hubs, put the new bearings in, I don't suppose you can see it really, but I did remember the piece I caught with the end mill, filled that in with JB weld, smoothed it all out. Of course it looks slightly different because this is a rough cast finish and that's smooth, but I'm not going to start messing around banging it with something to make it look rough cast. So they're done. What else? Right, so if we're going to be having wheels shortly and we've got everything to do with the forks, we should look at the swinging arm so we can get ourselves a nice rolling chassis. Alright, we did one little job, that was putting those stops on there for the the snail cams for the wheel adjustment. So these here are 3/4 of an inch long. I actually need them to be 7/8. George is out mowing his grass, that's what that noise is you can hear. So I virtually have no space to put a nut on because they come out to like there, and I want to put a lock nut on. Alright, so we're going to make new ones of these. Now these are like the ones I normally make, they're sort of mushroomy shaped. See there, the bronze colour, they're just bronzed on. So what we're going to have to do is cut these off, and then we'll make up two new ones of these which are 7/8 of an inch long in this section and a bit longer in that section as well, so I can get a lock nut on. Right, now the other thing we need to do is up at this end. This has silent block bushes in it. If you don't know silent block bushes, they are sort of rubber in between steel, so they take up some play. The steel is the actual bushing for this to run in, the swinging arm pivot, but then they have this rubber bush around them. If we can get in, which I don't know if we can with a hacksaw, you can, because these just don't press out, or at least I'd never be able to press them out. You can cut them in two and then get them out, or to be honest, what most people do is you set fire to them. You get your torch, you put it on, the rubber starts to melt and burn, and then they'll pull out, and then you just clean all the old rubber out. So typical with BSA, noisy today, they never like to make things sort of standard sizes. If ever you look at the lengths of bolts in the BSA parts book, they're sort of 2 and 19/32. Why they can't make them 2 and 5/8, I don't know. This is 13/16. So when I started looking at different options to this, the idea of this tube here is about, as near as I can get to see, 1 1/4 inches. I couldn't find any combination, not needle roller bearings or bushes or anything, that were 13, well anyway, I couldn't find anything that was 13/16. Obviously the only I couldn't go any smaller, because then this thing wouldn't go through the hole, which I'll show you in a minute. So it would have to be bigger, so I could sleeve that 13/16, maybe to make it 7/8 or whatever, and then basically we were screwed. So I thought the obvious thing to do is to actually make some bushes. Then I can make them to whatever sizes I want. So my first thought was bronze, and then I phoned Dick, who knows all things materials, and he suggested I use more or less a very similar stuff to the Argus bushes. I say I couldn't find an Argus bush with these weird numbers either. It's MDS impregnated nylon, molybdenum disulfide, which makes the nylon, which is, we know, hard wearing, very slippery. He says it's easy to machine, so I think I've got space as well when I machine the bushes themselves to have a flange, almost like a thrust face there. So how does this go into the frame? Let me show you that. I'm going to swivel you around, so hold on to your seats. There you go. Goes through that hole there, right? So yes, I could open those holes out, say to 7/8 and make a new wheel spindle, but I would have to make sure these went out to 7/8 exactly the same on both sides. In other words, one wasn't slightly up or forward from the other one. So I decided the easiest thing to do is just to make the bushes. Now, this actually comes in from the other side, but basically that goes into those holes. Right, so what we're going to do is, as I say, this goes in from the other side, is we're going to cut this like that, round that off. Then when that goes in from the other side, we can put a bolt in to hold it there, and the nut goes on here. Then we'll make, this is 1/4 inch, we'll make some extensions which will get welded on, and we'll mount the footrests, and on that side the brake pedal on that. Okay, so first thing to do is to cut these things off. Right, so there's the first one cut off. Actually, I did it in the bandsaw. It cut through really easily. You can see the bronze where it was bronzed in, and you can see we cut through that fine, so that should just, come on, there it goes. That should just knock out. It's a bit awkward to get at now. Hang on, let me change the way I'm holding it. Alright, that's held a bit further. There we go. So now I'll clean that up, do the other side, and then we'll make up some pieces. Well, I thought I'd try a little experiment, and I squirted some Croil in here, and just to prove me a liar, look, that is pressing out. Now that's the centre coming out. Actually, you can see here perfectly where a silent block bush is. That's the centre. There's the rubber, and there, well, you can't really see that, can you? There is the outer. So, of course, I made a piece to press it in, and it pressed in. It was going great, so I kept going, and then I couldn't get the sort of plunger, the press out. It was jammed in the rubber, so that took me ages. But anyway, let me get this centre pressed out, and then we'll see what we can do. I haven't started making those things yet. I wanted to play around with this. Well, whoops. Thought I'd show you a little bit of pressing. because you can see it's going down quite easily. I put a little bit of something under here because of course the swinging arm sticks down a little bit lower than the end of the cross piece. That wasn't a pop, that was that dropping out. So that is probably one centre. Right, so now we've got to get the other one out. Push this down so far, and then I'm going to have to put a longer piece inside it. See, I've tried to press these out before, and perhaps it's because of the coil. The rubber has such a grip on that inner bush that I've never been able to do it. Okay. At least that came out this time. So last time it jammed in, I thought, oh God, I'm never going to get this out. I didn't know what I was going to do, and of course I couldn't get this top part out because that would go there, and I couldn't get this out of here because of that plate. Alright, so, oh, there's the bottom one coming out. Now I need another bit of something to go in here. Let me see if I can knock the centre pieces out and put a longer bit in there. Yeah, I've got a longer rod in. Hang on, have I tightened that valve up enough? Good grief. How long is this thing? I'd love to get one of those air over oil or whatever with a little foot operating thing. Well, that's suddenly going a lot easier. Is that about ready to fall out? Did that just fall out there? There it is, with my little piece in the end. Alright. Let me take this out and take it over the bench. Now there's one rubber bush, that's the one from this end. The other one broke up when I was trying to get the end of the press out. But as you can see, I can feel it, that's still, that's come out now. So there's still part of one rubber bush in there. And I think, I don't see how I'm going to get these outer part of the bush out, because the piece in the middle looks to be have a smaller ID, so I can't get a punch down. Anyway, I don't know if punch would knock these out. These are in so firmly, I think, and they're a nice sort of machine type finish. I think I'll leave them in and make my nylon bushes to fit into that. So let me get that bit out the middle, and then we will get on to making those things. I've got to go and look at another swinging arm to see if that thing, it looks as if it's bent, but you never know. It's maybe angled like that for a reason. I doubt it, but we'll check. Right, so there's the two of them out. That's the one that had broken up a bit. Luckily I was able to get a thin screwdriver in and sort of bend it and pull it out. Alright, so that's that done. Cleaned these up a little bit, checked them, and they're perfectly round. Everything looks fine, so I think that's what I'll do there. I just had a look at swinging arm. That is bent, so we'll straighten that. Hang on. There we go. I also measured this and measured the space between the mounting plates, and this is 104 thou. Obviously there's paint, so we're going to say 100 thou less. So when I make these bushes, I can have a 50 thou sort of thrust flange on it. So that's fine. Right, now then, let's make these suspension mountings. Right, so here's what we're going to make. We're going to make it from 1-inch stock, which is just the right size actually for this end piece. So it's going to have this shoulder on it, which is an 1/8 inch thick. That's what goes onto the inside of the swinging arm plate. Then we've got 1 3/16 inches at 490. That is sort of a loose fit onto the bottom of the suspension unit, because don't forget, take into account you're going to paint this. So you're going to put a couple of thou, at least, probably several thou of paint on. So if you make it an exact fit, when you go to put the suspension unit on, it won't go, and you're going to have to sand your paint off. I almost slipped up because I made this 7/8, and then it struck me it's 7/8 plus the thickness of that swinging arm plate. Right, so that's 1 3/16. Then it drops down to being 3/8 for 9/16, which is what I measured is a washer and a lock nut. Alright, so what we're going to do first of all is we're going to take this whole piece here down to the 490. So we'll mark this here, the total length. I haven't marked it on, but it's what, 1 3/4. So we'll mark there 1 3/4, turn that down to 490. Mark here 9/16, turn that down to 3/8. Put our little relief in, and then we'll just use a die to do that. Then this is a longish piece of stock actually, so I'm just going to stick it in the saw, cut it off, and then put it in the other way around, holding it on this piece, and we'll face it off to bin. I mean, this is roughly 1/8. That just makes it nicely strong on the back side. Okay, right, so there it is with our first mark, 1 3/4. We're going to take this down to 490, and it just so happens that after the sort of clean up pass it came out at 990, so I've got to take 500 off, 250 each side. That's forward. I'll be a little aggressive here. We shall see. Okay. So I've got it on quite a slow feed, as you may have noticed. Sounds alright. I mean, it's a big lathe. I'll put a 50 cal cut, but I've got to take 250 off. That's working nicely. Okay, I'll just keep doing this until I get it down to the size so we do our next mark. Right, so I've done that, and you'll notice the bit of die ken, because I almost slipped up again. I wanted this to 490 to be a nice easy sliding fit on that, see, so I can get some paint on it. But then it suddenly struck me the hole in the plate might not be 490, so I checked and it was like 502 thou. So that's the thickness of the plate, and I didn't take that all the way down because I don't want it to be a sloppy fit in the plate, because then this wouldn't be exactly centered. Alright, so now I've got to mark along here, whatever it was, 9/16, and we'll take that down to 3/8. Right, now that bit's turned down to 375. I've put the little grooving tool in here, so I'm going to put just a run-off groove, and then we'll thread this. Right, so I've got a 3/8 fine die in here. I have that die holder thing that goes into the heads, yeah, the headstock, but I'm just using the headstock run out to hold that flat, and this is set to the slowest speed, or at least it should be. Maybe I should just check that there. So all we're going to do now, on there, bring that up to hold it square. Put your cutting oil on. And I think we're about done. Reverse. And there we go. Right, so let me go and stick this in the saw, cut that off, and then, as I say, we'll grip it with this and face that off, and then we'll make sure it all fits. And there's the finished article with that end turned down, so this should be a tight fit in here. See what I mean? That would have been so wobbly with the right size for the actual suspension unit. That actually is too tight. Thought it was too tight to fit there. So there's that in there. You move you around a little bit, hold your seats. There you go. And as I say, the 1 inch was just the right size, so we'll bronze that up. And that's that one done. And oh, there it is, right there. So that is going to go on there. First, and as you can see now, there's nice. Oh, it's a little loose. It's a nice fit, or enough space anyway to get the. I'll do some dishwashers and then a lock nut on there, 3/8 fine lock nut. All right. So let me make another one of these. So there's that bronzed in. You'll notice actually that the whole thing is bronzed. So there's that one. There's the other one, all nicely done. So let's go and do that piece. Oh, what is it? I just did the last bit of video. I kept calling the tailstock the headstock on the lathe, and I noticed in one of them I called the pivot spindle for the swinging arm the wheel spindle. Oh dear, must be because I'm 72 now. Actually, I'm just finishing off the video because it's my birthday tomorrow and we've got a couple of days of stuff planned. Not that you need to know that, but anyway. You can hear my little AC unit down this end of the workshop because it's hot today. Alright, the last little job to do was to cut that plate like that. So now this goes in here. I say there's a big nut on the other end, which I can't find. I must have taken one off. Then see, that goes in there, gets bolted in. So actually, to a certain extent, the nut on the other end is superfluous. But anyway, we'll put a bolt in there and that holds that in. Alright, so that's it for this week. Next week, hopefully the couple of bits will be here and we'll build the engine. And what else am I waiting for? Oh yeah, I ordered the MDS impregnated nylon to make those bushes. So that will be coming and we can finish the swinging arm off and I'll get on with the wheels. And I think I mentioned earlier, what I'm going to do is put in the video description, because I can't remember offhand what they are, the parts in the parts in the BSA250 Trials bike build I did a couple of years ago that deal with rims and hubs and wheel lacing, etc. Alright, so until next week, stay safe and enjoy yourselves.